Hey guys, it's Angie. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new, welcome back. If you're not, hey, how you doing? For this video, we're gonna go ahead and talk about dating in Japan as a foreign woman. I also wanted to go ahead and give my personal experience as well, since I know that's a topic that a lot of people are interested in knowing about right now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe before we get in. So go ahead and pause, like and subscribe. Yeah, all right, let's go. Alright, so to start off the video, I wanted to talk about what makes dating in Japan different than dating in another country. The biggest thing that I noticed altogether is that Japan is a conservative country, and what that really means behind the dating aspect is that there's a lot of things that doesn't happen simply because Japan is conservative that also won't happen even if they're in a relationship. There's not going to be much PDA. There's not going to be much affectionate behavior shown towards their partner and stuff like that sometimes. But that doesn't obviously mean everybody. That just means that in certain situations you can find that the conservative mentality will show throughout some relationships if you try to have them in Japan. And that's not a diss either. It's just since it is a conservative country, there's a lot of behaviors that you're not going to find to be more outward, and they're just going to kind of label that as like, oh, that's just not how it's done in Japan. Like a lot of things in Japan, whenever it comes to understanding anything, they're just going to be like, this is just how it is. They don't really have an understanding or explanation for it. It's just like, this is how it is, so this is what we know. We're just going to do what we know. And that's the biggest thing you have to understand whenever you're trying to get into a relationship or just get into anything that has to do with Japan, period, is that sometimes it is what it is and you can't do anything to change it. The next key difference is going to be the language barrier. If you're coming from literally anywhere else other than Japan, you have to learn a new alphabet system. You have to learn a new tone of speaking, new sentence orders and stuff like that in order to really break that language barrier on your end. But at the same time, you have to understand that they're doing that too. And a lot of people can find that to be too difficult. And sometimes I've seen in certain situations where people genuinely just gave up on the idea of trying to have a relationship with someone just because they were unable to properly attain the language in order to maintain a proper relationship with them. So that's going to be a very big factor for a lot of situations. Some people will genuinely just give up trying to build a relationship if that language barrier is just too strong to break through. Another thing I want to talk about is the ignorance and stereotypes that kind of come with being a foreign woman that some people can pick up and believe, but not every single person believes. And that's going to go ahead and be like the fact that a lot of Japanese men do tend to think that foreign women are just there to kind of put out rather than actually be loved. In many scenarios, you know, you'll just be approached by men who kind of pretend that they want to date you because hookup culture is still kind of taboo. So rather than actually wanting to date you, they're just going to be like, oh, be my girlfriend. Then they get what they want from you and then they leave or ghost you because they got what they wanted. They just needed some way to get that access. And it happens a lot. Sometimes they won't even fake the premise of it. I remember one time I was in Shibuya with some friends going to get literally ramen, and some guy just came across the street like, hey, you want to go to a love hotel?
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
No hi, no how are you, no konnichiwa, no genki desu ka, no choshi ga ii, just straight, hey, let's go to a love hotel. So a lot of guys will kind of approach you like you're supposed to put out because that's just the stereotype, that's the thing that they got in their head. But in reality, if you're trying to look for a long-term relationship for any reason at all, you just have to understand and differentiate that too. So that's going to be a key difference for how you're approached by men too. Another thing is cultural differences. Some people will feel like there's just cultures that are so significantly different than Japanese culture that they won't understand how to interact with someone who's of a different culture. And because of that breakdown, you know, a lot of people will be like, oh, your culture is too different, and they just feel like these things will like clash rather than actually coming together to build like a new culture. Because whenever you're dating outside your culture, dating outside your race, your ethnicity and stuff like that, you are kind of implementing a new culture within your household, and some people find that too difficult. So that's really what's going to also steer people away from trying to have a relationship with people from foreign backgrounds whenever we're speaking from a Japanese point of view. So commonality that we'll see is going to be like foreign man and Japanese woman, and that's mostly because like the foreign men aren't really scared to approach them even if they have that language barrier. They're gonna kind of come in that start of confidence and have a different mindset that a lot of Japanese women are said to have liked. I'm not gonna put any words in any Japanese woman's mouth because I don't know that to be fact, but I just know that a lot of people do say there's certain characteristics about foreign men that a lot of Japanese women do like. And as far as my friend, I know for him, even though there is a language barrier between him and his girlfriend, what he does is he uses translator. He calls her all the time. They speak in English majority of the time because she can speak English too. He also restarted his Japanese language class just to make sure he could speak to her a little bit better because he wants to like have those deep conversations that like you can't really have off of like basic Genki textbook #1, you know? So like, it's just that confidence that he came with to secure the relationship, and then afterwards he's like, okay, I'll do the work later. But a lot of people, whenever it comes to like Japanese men, foreign women, the men, if they don't have that language ability, they don't really know how to secure the relationship first for many scenarios. That doesn't mean it's all, because it's just not all. Like, I can't generalize every single person. I haven't dated every single Japanese person in the country, and I don't have any plans to. The foreign men do have a way to kind of bring that confidence in and then secure a relationship and then do the work afterwards, but then it's kind of different for the women's side. So a big difficulty that many women deal with whenever they're dating outside of their race or culture or ethnicity has to do with the fact that there's beauty standards that people feel like they have to abide to. Now, overall, the whole point of even existing is that you shouldn't really be fitting into any beauty standard anyway, because everyone is different. Everyone's built in their own image. Even though a lot of people do have beauty standards, they have their wants and stuff like that, it's like, it feels a little bit hopeless sometimes when women go into another country, go into different places, and then like the whole beauty standard is like bent to fit what they're used to. But in reality, it's just a little bit more difficult. Like, let's go towards what some people say is like the Japanese beauty standard, and let's use me for an example. The only thing I'll probably fit is short, but at the same time, you know, I'm about average overall human height over there anyway. So it's like, I'm not necessarily going to be fitting any beauty standards when I'm out there. It is a matter of who finds me attractive when I'm anywhere that I need to worry about, not necessarily fitting into the beauty standards so everyone can find me conventionally attractive. That's how I kind of look at it. So just understanding that you're not gonna fit the beauty standards is kind of the most important part of that. You don't want to think that there's anything wrong with you. It's just understanding that there's a beauty standard that's there, and rather than trying to fit within it, you have to understand and find confidence within your own beauty, because someone will like you for who you are rather than who you're trying to be, so that you feel like you need to kind of conform into a beauty standard when beauty standards is always going to change in the world. So don't go changing yourself. Don't go, you know, doing anything crazy. Alright, so now we're just going to go ahead and speed run the things that I see a lot of foreign women deal with whenever they're in a relationship with a Japanese person. Like, we're the ones who are usually like learning more and more of the language, and that may be because, like, you know, we tend to love the culture to a certain extent already, and then just be willing to learn anyway. So just breaking that language barrier, especially if, like, you know, you love communication, you're gonna want to make sure you could communicate in whatever language need be. Another thing is that it's easier to date Japanese people in more international communities. So like in Tokyo, Osaka, Okinawa, things like that, you're gonna find it a little bit easier to date. But that doesn't mean that you're gonna find quality relationships everywhere just because of the location. Another thing that I noticed is that the men are typically more open-minded and more educated or well-traveled whenever it comes to Japanese men and Japanese men that are dating foreign women. A lot of scenarios I do see, like, oh, the men are like, you know, kind of engulfed in like different cultures, or they're born and raised somewhere else, they fell in love with different cultures, things like that. That education really does help a lot of foreign women like have that respect and stuff like that in relationships, and have that open-mindedness for them to understand that there's a little bit more outside. Because if you find a closed-minded Japanese person, they're not really going to clash well with someone who is from a whole different kind of world almost. You're going to find them to be way more understanding on how to actually navigate a relationship with a foreign woman. Another thing that foreign women also deal with is the men's fear of the woman leaving. That tends to happen a lot in relationships. Like, you'll think that everything's going good, but then that thought of like, oh, you're gonna leave, you're gonna go back home one day, it can cause a lot of like strain in a relationship or a lot of fear in a relationship for if you're gonna leave, especially once again if you're just like a foreign person. They don't know if you're gonna stay forever, they don't know if your mind's gonna be changed, and that's a lot of things that people deal with whenever they're trying to find people who they want to date, because it's like that fear is always going to be ringing in the back of their head on if that person is going to leave the country and not like keep their word on what they think, you know. Another thing that foreign women deal with a lot that I've dealt with is dating for language practice. There's a lot of people who will just tell you, oh, if you want to learn Japanese, just date a Japanese guy. But it's not that easy. A lot of Japanese people in return will be like, oh, you want to learn how to speak English, date a foreigner. But then all in all, you're just going to realize the whole purpose of them dating you is just for them to speak better English, and you never know, one day they might just dip themselves. So that's another like difficult part of dating. You're gonna find all these types of people and all these types of scenarios where you realize like, oh, it's either you're making a lot of effort or they're making a lot of effort. But at the same time, you're gonna find those grays in between it too. That makes like the whole concept just like, you know, this makes it a little for people. All right, and without further ado, drum roll please. Let's go ahead and get into my experience with some of these Japanese men. The first one we're going to be talking about is this guy who I met in Shinjuku, and he was like a nampa surito. And that just basically means like their whole goal is to like flirt with you and like get something out of you. And he asked me to be his girlfriend and like wanted me to exclusively like be his girlfriend and stuff like that, and not talk to anybody else, don't mess with nobody else. But then I ended up finding out that he was cheating on me.
Oh my God, bro.
With a lot of girls, because he ended up telling me that he didn't have an Instagram account and he had 5. And when I like accidentally checked his phone, I swear to God it was an accident. I was trying to turn off one of his alarms. He had like 5 accounts back to back to back with dates planned. Like even for the same day that me and him were hanging out. So I was like, so that person got cut off real fast. Next person is number 2. This is just an example of how a lot of Japanese men can take on hookup culture. This guy, he asked me to be his girlfriend, in which I wasn't really entertaining because I'm like, I'm not gonna be your girlfriend. But when I was friends with him, he would like ask me to be his girlfriend just so that he'd get like foods from me. He could like ask for phone play and stuff like that. And I ended up like cutting him all the way off because this man called me on my great grandpa's funeral day asking for nudes.
Brother,
like my great grandpa. We could even bury the man. Like he was asking for nudes and calling throughout the whole funeral. So I put a block on that dude. It was really awkward. The next one's gonna be T. Me and T actually been friends for a couple of years. He asked me to be in a relationship with him, and I was like, cool, I've known you for a while. So like we started something out. The only goal I realized that he had in the relationship was just to speak more English. It wasn't actually like to care about me. I thought that kind of sucked because like, you know, if we've been friends for like 3 years, why didn't you just ask me to teach you more English throughout the whole time? You waited until like we got into some type of relationship for you to like be like, okay, now I'm gonna ask you a lot more English questions. We're gonna have English conversations. And there was a lot of times where I noticed he was like using a translator, and I'm like, it's okay, I speak Japanese too. We could like switch off every now and then. And he'd be like, nah, and he used a translator, and I would just never understand what he was saying. So that kind of got really annoying, real boring, real fast. So the next one is K. K was actually really, really sweet. I met him in the club in Shibuya, and he ended up taking me on a couple dates. But the only thing that was kind of weird about it was just the fact that he ended up, after one of the dates, he was just like, okay, cool, can we go to the hotel? And I was just like, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. And I just got ghosted. And to this day, he still like sees my posts, interacts with my posts and my stories and my social media and stuff like that, but just refuses to text me. And I'm just like, that's not whatever. The next person is S. S, I was actually talking to. We never got into a relationship, nothing ever like with S or K. You know, we went out to eat like once, hung out for my birthday. And afterwards, I actually had planned a date to hang out, spend a day together, go to the zoo, go to the aquarium, I think, go hang out in the area that he works at. And in his defense, he went to the hospital. Somehow he ended up in the hospital, and afterwards I got ghosted permanently. Does not interact with me, does not speak with me. I don't know if I'm blocked or if I'm restricted, but I never reached out again because I'm like, I'm not gonna beg a dude to give me attention. That's never gonna come from me, ever. So I don't know, as far as me and S, that didn't work out at all. That whole situation got deaded very, very fast. Okay, so the next person we're gonna go ahead and talk about is like an older situation, but like it's just a funny example on how some men can be in Japan. So this dude, like, he was actually someone I ended up speaking to from a dating app. We ended up hanging out like twice. He was someone that I thought was trying to get to know me. I got to hang out with him on my second trip to Japan. He was really, really kind, but he's also very nosy. This man would go through every single thing I owned just to make sure like I wasn't talking to anybody else, even though we were just friends. And I'm like, that's weird. Then on my third trip to Japan, he like, once again, went through every single thing I owned. If I didn't hide my suitcase, he was gonna go through it. And I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't be friends with someone that makes me have to hide my stuff, you know? Like hide my purse, hide my passport, hide my wallet. Not because he was gonna like take anything, but because he was just gonna go through everything. And I remember he like went through, like he would watch my stories and stuff like that, and any male, female, if I stepped out of my house, he'd ask me where I'm going, if I'm gonna go hang out with guys, blah blah blah, and anything. So then when I hung out with him on the third trip, I was like, why do you ask me all these questions? Like, why are you like so like overbearing? He's like, I don't know, I think I'm just jealous. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm very glad that you're honest with yourself and that like you understand. But he's like, I don't want a relationship with you though. I don't like any type of commitment. I'm just jealous. I don't want you to be around anybody. I'm like, what does that mean? So this dude like wanted me to shut off every single communication. He didn't want me going out. He didn't want me doing nothing. Even if I was hanging out with girls, he didn't want none of that. He just wanted me to be in my own bubble and be available for him. And I was just like, so I deaded that real fast. That was toxic for no reason. Literally too toxic for me. I don't even know how that ended up getting so bad. Like, he was texting me and all throughout when I was in America in between my trips, like, hey, you're not with anybody else, right? You're not messing with anybody else. I'm like, no, I'm not messing with you either. So what are you on about? All right, so that was just like, yeah, a quick little compilation of the people that I've seen, been around, and dealt with. And I think it's just very interesting whenever it comes to Japanese men altogether, because you will find some people that are just like really, really cool, but then they switch up on you just like this, you know? I've been in some seriously bad situations with some Japanese guys, but that doesn't allow me to make a negative judgment on, you know, Japanese men as a whole. So I will say that if you do try to date a Japanese person, good luck. There's a lot of things that does come with the territory as far as being a foreign woman, but just hopefully you're not doing it for the fetish. Don't do it for the fetish, don't do it for the vibes. Do it because you actually care about, you know, people. Do it because if you know you're gonna live there for long term, or you actually love the country and stuff like that, you want to love the people within it. But that was my experiences, and that's just some information on dating as a foreigner, as specifically as a Black woman in Japan. The challenges that we may face, the reality of a lot of things. But that's gonna wrap up for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the information I had to relay. I hope the little, you know, personal experiences are funny. I could have gone in a lot more detail, but I also wanted to respect my privacy and the privacy of the people within that relationship that I have with them. So that's why I didn't go a little bit more into detail about it. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and Angie is out. All right, peace.